This is Denise's daughter, Madison. I'm Denise's daughter. And today I'm going to be reading you Jean Laffite, the pirate who saved America. Okay. A great number of Jewish people became pirates of the Caribbean. They had been kicked out of Spain and other parts of Europe, and they had no homeland. For this reason, they detested Spain and gladly hired themselves as pirateers to seize and rob Spanish ships. One of the Jewish pirates was even a rabbi who brought a Jewish chef along to prepare kosher meals and, on land, held services in his house. Another year later was Jean Laffite. As a little boy, Jean, born in the early 1780s and the youngest of 8 children, dreamed of being a pirate. So did his brother Pierre. They admired their oldest brother Alexander, a pirate of the Caribbean. When Alexander came home to part a prince, he told Jean and Pierre incredible tales about his voyages. He always bought us gifts, said Jean. Alexander probably brought the boys a parrot or a parakeet or even a monkey as a souvenir from his travels. Here's a parrot. Even though pirate was a common business in those days, the Grandma Zoa strongly disapproved. She raised Jean and his older brothers and sisters after the death of their mother. Grandma Zoa told stories, too. Hers were about the family's suffering in Spain and how they were to practice their Jewish faith in secret. Like many others, they had fled to the New World and had settled in Port-au-Prince in Saint-Denis, later renamed Hatta. Because of the Grandma Zoa's stories, Jean and Pierre hated Spain. We decided that when we grow up, we would capture all of Venus flying in the Spanish flag, said Jean. Grandma Zoe, however, wanted the boys to be well educated and to use writing to help others. She sent them to good schools, so Alexander had to secretly teach the boys about pirating. Here's the grandma. By the time Jean was 16 and Pierre was 18, they had been taking voyages with Alexander and had sailed to New Orleans. I miss grandmother a great deal, said Jean, and she wept every time I went aboard a ship. Alexander was a type of pirate you call a pioneer. He had a letter marque or license from France giving him permission to capture Spanish ships. In return, he agreed to share the loot with the French government. Flying the French flag, Jean and his brothers set sail to find Spanish merchant vessels and warships. The first vessel was captured was owned by a Spanish family of Saint-Domingue, said Jean. Armed with pistols tucked on their belts, knives at their sleeves, and cutlasses strapped to their waists, they jumped on board to the schooner. Alexander demanded to know where the cargo was hiding. He fired his pistol. The terrified captain finally surrendered his stash of gold, coffee, and cinnamon. Sometimes Jean and Pierre signed on as sailors with other pioneers so that they can learn the trade. Unlike most pirates, Jean was as polite and gently aboard as he was in port. On a voyage to St. Croix, Jean met a Danish-Jewish girl, Christine Levine. They fell in love, married, and within a year later they had a son. Pierre was now married too, and the families lived comfortably in Port-au-Prince. In April 1801, Jean and Pierre took command of a ship jointly. Their uncle Ring was the captain of another vessel, and together the ship sailed west, flying to the French flag. After 2 weeks at sea, Jean and his brother and uncle spotted a Spanish sloop of war on the horizon. They raised their sails. With a good wind behind us, we were able to keep up a high speed, said Jean. As they drew closer, Jean fired a cannon, a warning signal for the warship to leave here. Uncle Ring gave orders through a speaking tube for the Spanish officers to surrender. The frightened crew of the Spanish ship ran around in all directions. Men scurried below decks to hide. Others jumped aboard. Jean and Pierre threw their lines over the railings of the Spanish warship. Grappling hook caught to rigging. Prepare to board, ordered Uncle Ring. They forced the captain to show them where the treasure was hiding. Jean and Pierre found gold, silver, bronze, as well as boxes filled with gold double Spanish coins. Best of all was discovered secret sailing papers that contained information to help capture more Spanish vessels with a sloop of war and tour. They sailed toward home. As soon as they arrived in Port-au-Prince, Jean hugged and kissed his wife and grandmother. He always carried with him in the Hebrew Bible that Grandma Zord had given him. On the fly leaf he wrote, "I owe all my integrity to the great institution of my Jewish Spanish grandmother." He never fought for his grandma's ideals. Over the next few years, Jean and Pierre captured many ships and earned a fortune. At the age of 22, Jean fought his first duel. With the sword drawn, he boarded a Spanish ship. The ship pinched and rolled as Jean and the other clanked swords. Jean won the duel without killing the officer. He took all the ship's prisoners, and they became members of his crew. I don't know if that's bad. In 1804, Grandma Zoe died. Jean and his family mourned her greatly. Jean decided it was time for a change, so he planned to move to France with his wife, sons, and newborn daughter. He built a ship, loaded her with everything he owned, and sailed off with his family. After 1 week at sea, a Spanish man-of-war chased them and attacked. "The Spartans captured us," said Jean. "They took everything, even my wife's jewels. Then they put Jean and his wife and children on a low sandy island and left them to starve. They were mourned, stranded, a pirate's worst fear. June was sure they would die. Luckily, a few days later, an American schooner sailed by and rescued them. From then on, Jean felt great loyalty to America. The ship took them to New Orleans. Jean's wife had become very sick with fever during the ordeal, and she died 3 weeks after they arrived in the city. Jean vowed their revenge against the Spanish ship and its crew for what they had done to him, his family, and especially his wife. To the Jean's surprise, the whole Laffite family had come to New Orleans. Jean's sister and sister-in-law took care of his children. Pierre Lot had lost his ship too. Governor William Cabral had accused him of smuggling, which was true, and had taken his bridge. Pierre had sneaked stolen goods to New Orleans without paying the government a tax. Now that the United States owned Louisiana, Governor Cabral was in charge. He despised pirates and wanted to rid New Orleans of them. To support others, Jean and Pierre got jobs with the United States Customs Services and even arrested other smugglers. In 1806, the brothers had enough money to buy a schooner. As they went back into business as pioneers, more than ever, Jean burned with the desire to capture Spanish vessels, especially the warship that had contributed to his wife's death. "So long as I live, I'm at war with Spain," he said. Jean, Pierre, and the other crew sailed to the city-state of Caribe in Colombia to get a letter of Macachu. Colombia had been ruled by Spain and was struggling to become independent, so the government welcomed to the help of pirates like Jean. Flying the Caribbean flag, he set out in his bridge, Ministry, to seize his prey. Soon he caught a Spanish schooner. He renamed her the Golden Dolphin Fish, and it became his favorite ship. As Jean and his brother swept across the Gulf of Mexico in their ships, they took one Spanish schooner after another. At last, in 1807, Jean hunted down the hated man-of-war. After a fierce battle, Jean forced the ship captain to surrender. He had finally avenged his wife's death. Give me 3 seconds, please. 42. Within the 3 years Jean and Pierre worked as a team, had plunged dozens of Spanish ships. Their older brothers Alexander and Reed joined their fleet. Jean became a favorite citizen in New Orleans. He opened a blacksmith shop in town and became acquainted with people in the community. With his stylish clothes, polished nails, and charming manners, he had won the spring and was well liked. At his grand home above the blacksmith shop and on a mansion roof, his mansion in Varta Bay He gave dinner parties that were attended by leading citizens. Excuse me, just burp. At this time, Spanish ship carried cannot speak today. African slaves as cargo. Although outlawed in many places, slavery was an accepted practice in the southern United States and the Caribbean islands. Gene remembered his grandma's teachings and said, "I never approved of the idea of trading and holding slaves." Yet, as a pioneer who had seized Spanish ships that held slaves along with the goods, he wound up selling slaves to Southerners. In 1807, a law was passed making it illegal to bring new slaves into the United States. However, New Orleans plantation owners and rich businessmen still wanted them. So on certain days of the week, they secretly went to the Laffite's pirate hideaway in Barta Bay to buy slaves. They also bought smuggled goods such as furniture, fancy clothes, and jewelry. That's not good. It's not good. Please, people do not do that. Barta Bay was a perfect pirate hideout. These islands, Grand Tree and Grand Isle, formed natural barriers to the bay. The surrounding marshes were filled with alligators and poisonous snakes. Only Gene and his pioneers knew how to ship through the twisting, shallow bays in their cargoes, which were flat-bottomed boats that transferred booty from the big ships and they had raided into pioneers and rowboats and then stashed their loot in warehouses on the Grand Tree. Around this time, between 500 and 1,000 buccaneers were hiding out in Barta Bay. Some of them have been there for years. Others were new arrivals from France and Italy or former slaves who had become pirates. Whereas Gene wore the clothes of a gentleman, most pirates wore gold earrings, striped shirts, and colorful bandanas tied around their head. They fought constantly and stole from each other. Many could not read or write and signed their name with an X. Gene, with his plain manner and wisdom, was often called upon to settle court fights. Around 1808, on a hillside in Barta, the first pirate competition was held, and the sea robbers, including Gene's brother and uncles, chose Gene as their leader. Everyone called him boss, and followed his orders. He could speak 4 languages: English, French, Spanish, and Italian, which helped him control the Conroe Rapids. The Bartians, as they called themselves, did more business than any merchant in Louisiana, but paid no taxes to the state or in the United States government. Governor Cabarrus was furious that they were breaking the law, and he offered a reward of $500 for the capture of Gene Laffite. With his good sense of humor, Gene responded by promising a reward of $5,000 for the capture of Governor Cabarrus. Nothing came out of it. Finally, Governor Cabarrus appeared to the newly elected president, James Madison, to rid the country of these pirates. The United States, however, became involved in the War of 1812 and had bigger problems. The war started because Britain was fighting with France, and among other things, the British forced American soldiers to join their navy. The British also tried to turn Americans against President Madison. Most of all, they wanted to reclaim American land as part of the United Kingdom, also known as Canada. In the summer of 1814, British warships and thousands of well-trained and experienced British troops arrived in the East Coast. British soldiers called Redcoats marched from the national capital and burned down the White House, the Capitol, and the Liberty of Congress. Next, they attacked Baltimore. They also wanted to capture New Orleans so they can control the Mississippi River and the entire West. And at first, people in Louisiana didn't believe it would happen, but Gene did. From his perch on the top of Grand Tier Island, he spotted British warships off the coast of Louisiana. Quickly, he sent a message to Washington, D.C. with the information. His messenger never came back. Gene tried again. My warning messages were either ignored or more probably they would never reach the officers, he said. On September 3rd, 1814, around 10 o'clock in the morning, an armed British brougham with 2 officers aboard sailed into Barter Bay. The British realized that only Jean and his buccaneers knew how to navigate the twisting voices and canals leading to New Orleans. Waving a white flag of truce, the commander and his interpreter came ashore. Jean's men angrily shouted to take the officers prisoner. Jean, however, respected their flag of truce, and the officers to his duelling. The offended Jane a rank of captain in the British Royal Navy, a gift of $30,000, more than $2 million today, and a full pardon for him and his buccaneers for the crime of piracy. They would help beat the Americans. Jean protested to consider the offer. Meanwhile, he rushed a letter to the governor telling him the proposal and also about the British were planning to invade New Orleans. The governor did not believe him. Jean sent another letter to the governor, offering his services and those of the buccaneers. Again, the governor ignored him. The Jean received news from a pirate spy in Havana, Cuba. The letter said that the British were planning to enlist thousands of native people and slaves in Florida to attack the cities of Pensacola, Mobile, and New Orleans. You have not a moment to lose, wrote the spy. Jean hurried the letter to the governor, who at last believed him. Governor Andrew Jackson was sent to protect New Orleans. Jackson, known as Old Hickory because he was to be the tough of that kind of wood, led his ragtag army of volunteers to New Orleans. When Jean's lawyer asked Jackson to let Jean and Barton fight with his black woodsmen, Jackson said he wanted nothing to do with the bandit. However, even the governor urged him to accept Jean's offer to march against the enemy. Finally, Jackson invited Jean to meet with him at his headquarters. Jean said that he and all the Bartons were ready to defend the country and its inhabitants. And according to its witness, the general accepted their offers. Jean shared his knowledge of the boisters and swamplands with Jackson. He prepared a map and showed the general where to build leaves and barricades. Jean also supplied him with cannons, gunpowder, and built sailors and artisans. On January 8, 1815, just before dawn, the Battle of New Orleans began. 3,000 uniformed British troops gently outnumbered the scuppery American army, which was made of blacks, woodmen, pirates, freed slaves, gunboat sailors, and a few women from New Orleans. British drums rattled at Jackson's army, and the British crashed along the lead of the groups of 4. Dense fog kept them concealed. The British fired a rocket to signal the attack. Cannon fire filled the air. Guns boomed. Musket balls whizzed by. Within a half an hour, the battle was over. The Americans had won. They had killed 2,500 British soldiers, but only 13 Americans had died. The remaining British redcoats ran away, claiming they were following an order to retreat. See that? Y'all can. General Jackson thanked Jean and his buccaneers for their effort. The Bartoniers had performed their duty with zeal and bravery, he said. On January 18th, the last of the British soldiers had left Louisiana, and the war ended soon after. America had re-established its independence. On January 23rd, New Orleans celebrated, Jean and the buccaneers marched in a parade along with the Jackson soldiers. Bands played Yankee Doodle, and ladies showered the men with camellia petals. That evening, there was a victory ball, and Jean danced until 2 o'clock in the morning. In February, President Madison received Jackson's account of the battle, and he was fully pardoned Jean and all the Bartons who had fought and granted their citizenship. In his proclamation, President Madison, James, praised their pirate traits of courage and fidelity and good and loyal services to the country. From then on, Jean Laffite was known as the hero of New Orleans and a pirate turned patriot. Grandma Zern would have been proud. Now, guys, that is real, but some of it is make-believe. I hope you enjoyed. It is this book, and I hope y'all liked it. Bye!